Clint Eastwood is Hollywood's last rebel. He walks onto Jimmy Kimmel's TV show to talk about his new movie, but what starts as a normal interview turns into a big fight that gets him kicked out of the studio. How did a simple talk show turn into such a mess? Let's find out. If you're new here, click that subscribe button and write a comment about where you're watching from. Let's see who's here for this crazy story. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is buzzing, lights shining bright, crowd making excited sounds. Clint Eastwood, who is over 90 years old, is the night's main guest. His presence alone is enough to make the room quiet. He's here for his latest movie, a serious drama about a cowboy fighting a big company trying to steal his land. A story that's as much about him as it is about the character. His squint, his rough voice, they're still powerful. But Clint doesn't like talk shows, the fake laughs, the prepared scripts. He agreed to this for one reason, to tell people about his movie. Anything else? And he's not playing along. Behind the scenes, trouble is already starting. Clint's helper Maggie, a serious woman who's been working with him for years, can feel it. She warned the TV people earlier, her voice quiet but firm, "Don't make him into a joke." They nodded, but their eyes showed something else, planning for clicks, a viral moment to use his fame. They want him to play along, maybe put on a silly hat or make a funny joke about himself. Maggie knows better. Clint doesn't give in. Not for movie studios, not for anyone. The TV people ignored her, and they'll be sorry for it. In the waiting room, Clint's drinking black coffee, looking at a TV screen as Jimmy Kimmel starts the show. Jimmy's doing great, his opening jokes making fun of the latest celebrity problems, the crowd laughing. Clint's face doesn't change, his fingers tapping lightly on the chair. Maggie notices it, that small sign he's checking out the situation like a cowboy before a gunfight. "They're going to try something," she says quietly to a worker who just shrugs, not understanding. The stage manager signals it's time, and Clint gets up, fixes his jacket, and walks toward the curtain. Alone, no big deal. The stage is a different world. Jimmy's telling a joke about some singer's public meltdown, the audience laughing right on time. He changes topics, talking up Clint's entrance. The man, the legend, Clint Eastwood. The band plays a tough-sounding song. The crowd goes wild, and Clint steps out, his walk slow, steady, like he owns the room. He shakes Jimmy's hand, a quick, strong grip, and sits, his body tense, eyes looking around the set. The cheers stop, and the air gets tight. Just the two of them now, the crowd a faraway sound. Jimmy plays it safe at first, asking about the movie, its ideas about loyalty, standing up for yourself. Clint leans forward, his voice rough but steady, talking about the cowboy, the land, the fight against greedy people. Every word hits like a hammer, the audience paying close attention, feeling how much he cares. But Jimmy's got a show to run, and he's looking for something lighter, something that'll go viral. He makes a joke about Clint's cowboy days, asking if he still rides horses. Clint's answer is short, quick. "When it matters." The crowd giggles, but there's an angry edge in his tone, a warning Jimmy doesn't notice. Feeling the moment slipping away, Jimmy tries to change direction, pulling a story from Clint's past. Something about a bar fight on the set of an old Western movie. He's trying to get a laugh, a sweet old story. Clint's eyes get narrow, his jaw tight. "That didn't happen," he says, his voice cutting through the studio noise. The crowd moves around, a mix of gasps and nervous laughs. Jimmy grins, thinking he can fix it, but he's wrong about what's happening. And Clint? He makes it worse, reaching for a prop, a cheap cowboy hat, holding it up like it's a joke. "Come on, Clint, one quick picture for the fans," he says, waving it. The audience claps, encouraging him, but Clint doesn't move. His stare could burn holes. "Put that away," he says, not loud but every word is clear. The studio goes quiet, Jimmy's smile breaking. Maggie, watching from the side, shakes her head. This is about to get ugly. The silence in the studio is scary, a heavy pause that feels like the moment before a storm hits. Jimmy Kimmel, still holding the cowboy hat, tries to laugh it off, his chuckle thin, fake. All right, no hats tonight," he says, throwing it onto the desk. But the crowd's uncomfortable, their earlier cheers now a quiet mumble. Clint Eastwood hasn't moved, his eyes locked on Jimmy, not blinking, like he's staring down a dangerous snake. The tension's obvious, the kind that makes your skin tingle. Behind the scenes, Maggie's hands are clenched. Her whisper to the stage manager sharp, "I told you not to push him." The stage manager, sweating, signals the control room to go to commercial. But the director's not ready to give up yet. They want the drama and they're getting it. Jimmy, feeling he's losing control, moves in his chair, trying to go back to the interview. So, let's talk more about the movie, he says, his voice a little too bright, like he's trying to reset the room. He asks about what inspired the cowboy story, hoping to steer things back to safe topics. Clint leans forward, his hands resting on his knees, and starts talking. But it's not the answer Jimmy wants. It's about people who don't give up, Clint says, his voice low, careful. People who fight when the world tries to take what's theirs, not about dressing up for laughs. The insult hits hard, and the audience catches it. A few gasps mixing with scattered claps. Jimmy's smile gets tighter, his fingers tapping the desk. The host tries to keep things moving, asking about making the movie, but Clint's not done. He cuts in without being asked, his tone sharper now. You know, I came here to talk about something real, he says, his eyes looking around the set, the lights, the crowd. Not to be some silly show for your TV ratings. The crowd stirs, some cheering, others whispering, not sure if this is part of the act. Jimmy's caught off guard, his usual quick jokes failing him. He looks at the floor worker who's signaling to end it, but Clint's on a roll, and he's not stopping. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive, he tells Jimmy, his voice steady but edged with anger. I don't need to play your games to sell a story. The audience is split now. Some shouting support for Clint, others making fun, thinking it's all for show. Jimmy, trying to take back control, leans in with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Hey, we're just having fun here, Clint. No need to get mad, he says, but the words sound empty. He tries a new angle, asking about Clint's directing style, hoping to make him feel good and calm down. But Clint's not buying it. Fun, he says, his voice full of disgust. You call this fun? Parading people out here to make them look foolish. He points at the set, the bright lights, the whole thing. The crowd's buzzing again, louder, feeding off the raw energy. Behind the scenes, the TV people are panicking. The director's in the booth, yelling orders to prep a commercial break. But the ratings are going up, and someone important wants to let it keep going. Maggie's walking back and forth, muttering about how she knew this would happen. She catches a glimpse of Clint on the TV screen, his face like stone, and knows he's not backing down. On stage, Jimmy's struggling, his jokes falling flat. He tries to change to a lighter topic, asking Clint about his favorite role from the old days, but Clint cuts him off again. You don't get it, he says, his voice rising just enough to carry. This isn't about me. It's about respect for the work, for the people watching. The crowd roars, some standing, clapping, others booing. The room, a powder keg. Jimmy's had enough. He leans forward, his tone sharper now, dropping the nice guy act. Look, Clint, we're just trying to give the fans what they want, he says, pointing to the audience. They love you. They want to see the legend. It's a mistake. Clint's eyes flash, and he leans in, his voice low but cutting. They don't want a clown. They want the truth. The words hang in the air, and for a split second, it's like the whole studio holds its breath. Then someone yells something from the back, too unclear to make out, but it's enough to break the spell. Jimmy takes the chance, standing up, clapping his hands. All right, we'll take a quick break, folks, he says, forcing a laugh. The band starts playing, but Clint's not moving, his stare fixed on Jimmy, and the crowd's on edge, sensing this isn't over. The band's playing loud and fancy, trying to cover up the chaos, but it's not working. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is like a live wire. The crowd buzzing, some cheering Clint Eastwood's name, others shouting for Jimmy to fight back. Jimmy's standing, forcing a smile, clapping like everything's fine. But his eyes look to the floor worker who's frantically signaling to cut to commercial. The cameras are still rolling, though, catching every second of this train wreck. Clint hasn't moved from his chair, his stare locked on Jimmy. A silent challenge that's louder than the music. Behind the scenes, Maggie's saying bad words, watching the TV screen, knowing Clint's not done. The director in the booth is torn, TV ratings are through the roof. But this is spinning out of control. As the band winds down, Jimmy sits again, leaning toward Clint, his voice low, off microphone, but the audience is close enough to catch bits. Let's just cool it. All right, we'll talk about the movie, he says, trying to save the segment. Clint doesn't blink. You had your chance, he says, his voice like a knife, just loud enough for the front row to hear. The crowd stirs, phones out, recording the moment already spreading online. Jimmy's jaw tightens. He's not used to being challenged like this, not on his own show. He looks at the audience, trying to figure out their mood, and decides to play to them. Folks, we love Clint, right? He says, raising his hands, trying to get applause. Some clap, but it's scattered. the room too divided to come together. Clint leans back, crossing his arms, his face unreadable. He's not here to win the crowd. He's here to make a point. The stage manager, standing near the side, signals Jimmy to end it. But Jimmy's not ready to let it go. He tries one last time to steer things back, picking up a question card, asking about the movie's actors, praising Clint's directing. But Clint had enough of the script. "You're not listening," he says, cutting Jimmy off mid-sentence. His voice isn't loud, but it carries, silencing the whispers. "This isn't about the movie anymore. It's about you thinking you can turn me into a toy for your show." The crowd gasps. A few shout, "Tell him, Clint," while others boo, the divide growing sharper. Jimmy's smile is gone now, his face red. He's been in tight spots before, but this is different. This is Clint Eastwood calling him out in front of millions. He tries to laugh, but it comes out strained. "Come on, man, it's just TV," he says, spreading his hands, asking the audience. "We're all here to have a good time." Clint shakes his head, slow, careful. "Not me," he says. "I came to talk about something that matters. You turned it into a circus." The words hit like a punch, and the crowd goes wild, half cheering, half jeering, the noise swallowing the set. Maggie, on the side, nods to herself, a grim satisfaction on her face. She's seen Clint take down bigger egos than this. The director finally calls it, the commercial break starting, the TV screens flashing ads. The band stops, and the house lights dim slightly, signaling a pause. But Clint's still in his chair, not moving, like a statue carved from stubbornness. Jimmy stands, whispering something to the floor worker, his hand movements sharp, frustrated. The audience is restless, some chanting Clint's name, others arguing among themselves. Security's moving closer to the stage. Two big guys in black, their eyes on Clint, but they're hesitant. They know who he is. Maggie steps forward, catching the stage manager's arm. "Don't even think about touching him," she snaps, her voice low but fierce. The stage manager nods, backing off, but the tension's only getting worse. During the break, the TV people huddle, voices raised, trying to figure out how to save the show. Jimmy's walking back and forth near the desk, running a hand through his hair, talking to himself. He knows he's losing, but he's not sure how to turn it around. Clint, meanwhile, sits calmly, drinking water a stage worker brought, his eyes looking around the crowd, reading the room. A few fans in the front row lean forward, trying to catch his attention, one yelling, "You're the man, Clint." He gives a slight nod, nothing more. The break's almost over, and the director made a decision. Let Clint stay, but Jimmy needs to take control. The cameras start rolling again. The band starts up, and Jimmy forces himself back to the desk. His face, a mask of being professional. But Clint's ready for round two. And he's not here to be nice. The studio lights snap back to full brightness. The band's final notes fading as the Jimmy Kimmel Live audience settles. Their whispers, a low hum of waiting. The cameras are rolling again, and Jimmy Kimmel slides into his chair. His smile practiced but strained, like a man stepping back into a boxing ring after a rough round. Clint Eastwood hasn't moved, his posture unchanged, eyes looking somewhere past Jimmy, as if the host is just a distraction. The crowd's energy is jagged, split between those chanting for Clint and others waiting for Jimmy to land a comeback. Behind the scenes, Maggie's watching, arms crossed. Her face, a mix of pride and worry. The TV people are on edge, the director's voice crackling through headsets. "Keep it tight, Jimmy. Don't let him run the show." Jimmy leans forward, clapping once to refocus the room. "We're back with the one and only Clint Eastwood," he says, his tone lighter than before, trying to reset the feeling. He dives into a question about the movie's camera work, hoping to ground things in Clint's knowledge. But Clint's not here for easy questions. He answers, his voice steady, talking about the harsh visuals. The way the land itself is a character, then, without being asked, he changes topics. "You know what's wrong with places like this?" he says, pointing at the set. "You think it's all about flash, about making noise. You forget what's real." The crowd stirs, some clapping, others shifting uncomfortably. Jimmy's eyes flicker with annoyance, but he keeps his cool, nodding like he agrees with their point. "Fair enough," Jimmy says, leaning back, trying to play the nice host. "But this is entertainment, right? People want a show." He points to the audience, fishing for support, and gets a mix of cheers and boos. Clint doesn't flinch. "They want honesty," he says, his voice cutting through the noise. "Not some polished lie you feed them to keep them clapping." The words land like a slap, and the crowd's reaction is instant. A roar of approval from some, jeers from others. Jimmy's smile falters, his fingers gripping the desk. He's losing the room and he knows it. The floor worker signals to change topics, but Jimmy's pride is in the mix now, and he's not backing down. He tries a different way, leaning in, his tone sharper. Look, Clint, you're a legend. Nobody's arguing that. But you're on my stage and we've got a show to do. It's a challenge, direct, and the audience feels it, their noise spiking. Clint's eyes narrow just a little bit, but it's enough to make the air feel heavier. Your stage, he says, his voice low, careful. I'm here because I chose to be, not to dance for you. The crowd explodes, some standing, shouting Clint's name, others yelling for Jimmy to push back. Maggie on the side shakes her head, muttering, "Here we go." The security guys move closer, their hands twitching, but they're still holding back, worried about how it looks. Jimmy's had enough. He stands, breaking the host's most important rule of staying seated, and points at Clint. You want to talk respect? How about respecting the people who invited you here? His voice is loud now, the nice guy mask gone. The crowd's on its feet, the noise deafening, a mix of cheers and boos swallowing the set. Clint finally stands, slow, careful, his height and presence filling the stage. He doesn't raise his voice, but every word carries. Respect is earned, he says, stepping closer to Jimmy. Not bought with lights and applause. The audience loses it, the studio shaking with their reaction. The director screaming in the booth to cut, but the cameras keep rolling, capturing the moment Jimmy's show becomes Clint's battleground. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is like a pot of boiling noise. The crowd's cheers and boos crashing like waves as Clint Eastwood and Jimmy Kimmel stand face to face. Inches apart, the air between them crackling. Clint's words, respect is earned, not bought with lights and applause, still hang heavy, the audience feeding off their raw defiance. Jimmy's face is red, his fists clenched, caught between anger and the need to save his show. The cameras, against the director's frantic orders, keep rolling, broadcasting every second to a stunned audience at home. Behind the scenes, Maggie's eyes are locked on Clint, her face fierce, ready to step in if things go further south. The two security guards, now at the stage's edge, exchange looks, unsure how to handle a legend like Eastwood. Jimmy breaks the standoff first, stepping back, forcing a laugh that sounds more like a cough. All right, Clint, you've made your point, he says, his voice tight, trying to take back control. He points to the crowd, hoping to rally them. Let's give it up for Clint Eastwood, folks. Some clap, but the applause is drowned by shouts. The room too charged to settle. Clint doesn't acknowledge it, his stare still fixed on Jimmy, like he's deciding whether to say more. The floor worker, sweating, signals security to move in, whispering, "Get him off now." The guards hesitate, but one steps forward, raising a hand toward Clint. "Sir, let's take a walk," he says, his tone careful, respectful. Clint turns, his eyes locking onto the guard, and for a moment, it's like the set freezes, the crowd holding its breath. "Don't," Clint says, his voice low. Not a threat, but a command. The guard stops, hands up, backing off. Maggie pushes through the side, her voice cutting through the noise. "He's leaving when he's ready," she snaps, glaring at the worker. But Clint raises a hand, silencing her. He looks at Jimmy, then the audience, his face unreadable. "I said what I came to say," he tells the room, his voice steady. "Done." Then, without another word, he turns and walks off stage, his walk slow, careful, the crowd going wild in a mix of cheers and stunned whispers. Jimmy's left standing alone, the band scrambling to play something, anything, to fill the quiet. He forces a smile, waving to the crowd. "Well, that was something, huh?" he says, his voice shaky, trying to spin it into a joke. The audience laughs, but it's uneven, the energy broken. Behind the scenes, the TV people are in chaos, the director yelling about damage control while Maggie follows Clint to the waiting room where he grabs his coat, calm as ever. "Told them not to push you," she mutters. Clint just nods, his eyes distant, already past it. Outside, the internet's going crazy, clips of the fight going viral, fans and critics picking sides. The show limps to its end, Jimmy rushing through the next segment, his usual charm off-kilter. The story of Clint's exit overshadows everything. A moment that'll be talked about for years. The night a legend walked onto a talk show and refused to play the game. As Clint steps into the night, the studio behind him buzzing with fallout, it's clear he didn't just leave. He drew a line, one that Hollywood won't soon forget. That's the story, folks. What a wild ride. If you loved this deep dive, hit that subscribe button to catch more stories like this. We're building a community that loves the real stuff. Drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. Maybe Los Angeles, Tokyo, or somewhere off the grid. Tell me what you think. Was Clint right to stand his ground, or did he go too far? Like the video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay real, and I'm out.